Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I'm your host, Kiana Canada. Welcome back to the Kiana Canada Show. Before we get into today's topic, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Remember that your likes and your shares, what it does is it pushes videos like this up in the algorithm. It tells the algorithm that videos like this are important. But we must be reminded that just because videos like this are not pushed up in the algorithm, that's not an indication that videos like this aren't important. Also, please subscribe and follow me on Facebook by searching for my name, Kiana Canada. That's Q-U-I-A-N-N-A, Canada like the country. Today, we are going to be talking about the Northern Ireland's Human Rights Commission decision not to answer my Freedom of Information request. On 2 occasions, I sent correspondence to the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission requesting disclosures, which it failed to acknowledge. Recently, I made a call to the Commission requesting that its response be made in writing and posted to me. I explicitly instructed the Commission not to email the documents to me. As of to date, the Commission has disregarded my request and has not provided any disclosures to me. This raises the question as to whether NISOS is still instructing the Commission. Later, I will explain why I think this to be so. But before we get into that, what is the Commission's alleged view on Freedom of Information request? According to its website, it states, quote, "We are committed to complying with the Freedom of Information Act. The purpose of the act is to promote greater openness by public authorities. Freedom of information law enables anyone, anywhere in the world to request any record information that we hold. The applicant does not have to explain their reasons for the request or that it is a request under Freedom of Information law. Our aim is to make the information easy for you to find and use. We will provide information if we hold it, unless one or more of the exemptions listed in the law applies. We do not have to provide information that is exempt," end quote. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was a statement that was published on the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission's website. I copied that statement verbatim this morning, and so I will link that statement in the description box below. But what is more disconcerting is that, as acknowledged in that statement, the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission, if it does decide to reject a request, it must provide the reasons for the rejection. So there are a number of exemptions in the Freedom of Information Act 2000. Some deals with national security, other exemptions deals. So there's an exemption for national security. There is an exemption for personal information. There is an exemption that it is publicly accessible to the public. For example, it's in the public domain. There are a number of exemptions in the Freedom of Information Act. And so I will link that in the description box below as well. Yet the Northern Ireland Commission didn't respond at all, nor did it list to me in a response via post or via anything, any exemption. It just did not respond to the request. So I'm deeply concerned about that. To reiterate, I contacted the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission. I believe I contacted them. Today is Friday. I believe I contacted them either on Tuesday or Wednesday. And I phoned them and I said, hey, this is Kiana Canada. I am getting an update on the request that I sent, I haven't received any information. Today appears to be the deadline pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, and I haven't received any of those disclosures. And so the receptionist stated, well, we were talking about that prior, or I heard them talking about that earlier. Oh, and I said, oh, you heard them talking about my Freedom of Information request? And that's quite odd, I think, for a receptionist to be privy to that kind of discussion. And this is a receptionist he's a male receptionist, an older male receptionist. Well, not older. I think he's like probably in his 40s. 40s or, yeah, he looks like 40s, late 40s, probably touching on early 50s, but late 40s gentleman that works at the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission. It seems odd to me that would be a discussion that a receptionist would be privy to. But again, there is a lot of oddities within this commission, as you know. I am of the view that, in my honest opinion, that this is not a real human rights commission. It doesn't operate like a real human rights commission. It really operates as a Potemkin commission. It operates as an institution that appears to be protecting human rights, but is following the instructions of the government. And so on the outside, if a person if you understand what like a Potemkin store is, like, I forget what that movie was called, where it looked as if the store had groceries in it, and it was full of like vegetables and fruits, and it had like all these groceries in it. It was these two journalists, I forget what the name of the movie is called, but two journalists, they went to North Korea, and there was this store that had, well, it looked like it was like replenished with groceries, vegetables and fruits. And there was always this propaganda that Northern Korea didn't really have grocery stores or didn't feed the public. And so when these two journalists went to North Korea, they seen what appeared to be like replenished grocery stores. And so interestingly enough, when one of the journalists decided, hey, let me go and check out what's in this grocery store, like something is not adding up. And so one day he went into the grocery store, and it was really just what appeared to be fruits and vegetables. They were actually fake fruits and vegetables, and then really not a grocery store behind this what appeared to be like, I forget what it was, but it was just kind of like this display of fruits and vegetables on the storefront. But once you walk into it, there's really nothing there, nothing at all. And so this is what I truly feel. This is my honest opinion. This is how I feel the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission is operating, that it's truly not a real human rights commission, that it operates under the auspices of a human rights commission, but reality is that it is an institution that often receives information from the public about human rights violations, and that information is then shared with the government to discredit the victims' claims against the government. And I believe that Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission has a big role, is playing a big role in violating the human rights of victims in Northern Ireland, such as myself. I'm speaking about my own experience. The commission was complicit in my own victimization here in Northern Ireland, and I am of the opinion, it is my honest opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to state anything that is defamatory. I honestly believe, based on my own experience, that the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission is complicit in the victimization of other people in Northern Ireland. Now, this revelation or this opinion is not a call to action to incite hatred or violence against the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission. That is not something that I would ever condone. And this is just for us to have a discussion and to gain a better understanding of why the commission is not following its mandate. Now, earlier in this discussion, I stated that I believe that NISOS Belfast may be instructing Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission not to provide the disclosures. And the reason why I feel that way is because Queen's University Belfast, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, and NISOS Belfast has been listed as defendants in my civil suit. And I only received a memo of appearance from the Police Service of Northern Ireland and Queen's University Belfast, but I didn't receive a memo of appearance from NISOS Belfast. And just the communication with defendant Queen's University Belfast's legal counsel. For instance, I went to get more information about the legal counsel of Queen's University Belfast, Carson, and that exchange was very uncomfortable. It was as if the person was, she looked at me as if I had no, she looked at me as if I was like, this is how I'll explain it. Her demeanor and disposition when I went to the firm to ask questions about went to ask questions about whether the defendant wanted me to deliver the statement of particulars on Wednesday, Thursday, or today. She looked at me as if I was like scum of the earth. Like, it was a very snobbish attitude that she had toward me. And it was very disrespectful and highfalutin personality that this woman had. And so immediately I was like, hey, I'm here to streamline this discussion on how to deliver this statement of particulars, and I'm seeking to cooperate with the defendant's solicitor. And I'm here to do that as a litigant in person. But just because I'm a litigant in person, that does not mean that I am, it doesn't give you the right to disrespect me. And so it was this energy. For example, when I was in there, immediately the security guard came into the space. Now, keep in mind, I'd never seen this security guard before, didn't have a discussion with this security guard, and didn't have any discussion with any person within the law firm on a prior occasion. Like months back, I went to that law firm and asked them if they could represent me, but that was like, they said, no, we don't take defamation cases. We don't take these types of cases, which they do take defamation cases because the solicitor who is on the case representing Queen's University Belfast is a specialist in defamation. So it really has to do with race, right? It's really a racial element. We're not taking your case because you're poor and because you're Black. But that's a story for another time. When they said they don't take cases, which they do take, I didn't argue with them. I left their law firm without incident. But when I visited their law firm this week, the security guard immediately and almost instantaneously invaded the space between myself and the alleged human resource person. And to me, that seems very odd because this is a personal discussion between a plaintiff, which is me, and the defendant's representatives. And to have security there just, hovering over our discussion was really disrespectful, and it didn't really treat me as a human being. And this really goes to the crux of the case that I have against Queen's University, is this stigmatization that Queen's University has placed on people like me, and it is harmful that it is placing this kind of stigmatization on people like me. Now, I am probably going to do a series on my journey with this legal experience and document it as I go through it, right? And that's probably going to be the best thing to do, because it's important for litigants in person to understand the nuances of how you're navigating this system in Northern Ireland and probably other nations as well, and the roadblocks that are being put into your place, or excuse me, the roadblocks that are being put in front of you as an obstacle to prevent you from getting the justice and the redress that you're entitled to. And so going back to NISOS, to reiterate, that seemed very odd to me. It seemed scripted, as if like they were instructed to behave in that manner. And so to reiterate, NISOS Belfast is the only defendant that has not responded to my freedom of information, who has not posted a memorandum of appearance to me, which may be indicative that NISOS Belfast is still operating behind the scenes and instructing these institutions to act in a particular manner. I'm going to be paying close attention to this, and this is probably going to be so important for me to document how I'm interacting with NISOS Belfast if they ever enter an appearance, how I'm interacting with NISOS Belfast, how I'm interacting with the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the Crown Solicitor's Office, and how I'm interacting with Queen's University Belfast. Now, let me be clear. This was not a lawsuit that I wanted to file. This is not what I wanted to do. I would rather there be a discussion about the harm that they caused me, and that there be reparations for that. And what I mean by reparations, I know that when you speak of reparations, there can be people that feel uncomfortable about that. But when there is a harm and a debt that is owed to the person for that harm, to reiterate, I was at Queen's University Belfast. I was a student. I was seeking to write my dissertation on transnational repression, got along with my professors, got along with the student body, didn't have any problems at Queen's University Belfast whatsoever. And you can follow my story. I'm not saying that throughout this whole period of time that I did not have problems. I'm just summarizing the experience. So this is not to be taken as, oh, she's saying she didn't have a problem there. No, I did have some issues at Queen's University Belfast, which I explain in the complaint to Queen's University Belfast and to the Police Service of Northern Ireland and to NISOS. But I'm just summarizing it here. And so I may show you or read that complaint to you. It all depends. But at first blush, at the beginning, I didn't have, from my stance, I was starting to make friends, really enjoying the campus. And then when it came time for me to write my dissertation, I was immediately thrusted into disciplinary proceedings over sharing my university experience and my educational experience with the people within my school. So in the School of Law, I shared that I felt uncomfortable having a particular professor oversee my dissertation, and I just really wanted there to be an alignment with that dissertation, or an alignment of views, possibly, where I have a dissertation supervisor that understands where I seek to go with my research and like my goals with the research. And because the professor wrote an article that seemed to be in contrast with what I sought to write, I feel like this was all inevitable, right? I felt like it was inevitable for me to have this particular dissertation supervisor, that was inevitable for me to have that person, and then for that there to be that conflict of interest, for me to actually talk about that conflict of interest in a respectful email, and then for them to use that email as a ruse to try and oust me from the university and to refuse performance on their part in the contract. And so, in summary, I feel that there still is possibly NISOS that could be instructing Queen's University Belfast, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, or the Police Service of Northern Ireland. We need to get to the bottom of this, and this is what this lawsuit is about, is to uncover who is behind this manipulative operation to tarnish my reputation. Who is behind, who is putting into circulation this manipulation to stop me from blossoming and being my best self? It is, to reiterate, there is going to be a period of time where if this case moves forward, there's going to be discovery. But in another video, or maybe I'll do it now, ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed that whenever a Black person is in a conflict with a person of the dominant society is stacking multiple institutions against a singular Black person? Like, let's examine my case, and I'll give you another example. So I'm just a singular Black person. Right now, I have no legal representative. I've tried to get solicitors in Belfast. I've tried to, in the past, get a barrister, and there has been someone with considerable power, such as NISOS or the PSNI, that has communicated to the Bar Association not to give me a barrister. Now, that is wrong according to the law, because barristers cannot turn down an applicant because they don't like that person's personality, they don't like that person's case, they don't like that person's political ideology. The cab rank rule is in place to prevent barristers from, picking somebody up that's further down on the list. So let's say, for instance, if I'm waiting on a cab, or better yet, I'm waiting on representation from a barrister, and the barrister looks at me and says, you know what, I don't want to represent her because she's Black, or I don't want to represent her because she is in support of Jewish people. I don't want to represent her because she is anti-racist. I don't want to represent her because she is going against the establishment. And then you pass me up, and then all of the solicitors have that same ideology about me, and all of them are passing me up and leaving me without representation. That becomes, not only is that procedurally unfair, but that is a miscarriage of justice in the legal system. And so that's what the cab rank rule is for, because what happened, back in the day, what cabs would do is that they would pass up certain fares. So there would be people waiting for or flagging down a cab, and maybe these cab drivers would look at a specific person and say, you know what, I don't like the way that person looks, or I don't pick up Chinese people, or I don't pick up Black people, or I don't pick up Jewish people. And then they would pass up the Chinese people, they would pass up the Black people, they would pass up the Jewish people, and then they would go pick up a person from the dominant society. And so these marginalized groups would be waiting outdoors for a cab and never would be able to enter one because of this prejudice and discrimination. And so the cab rank rule is off of that, to say, to combat this prejudice and discrimination, barristers have a duty to accept a case, even if they don't like the person. They have a duty to accept that case if they have the time to take that case. And so this is all unfolding, ladies and gentlemen, and this time around, I'm going to be carrying myself quite differently than I did in the Republic of Ireland. So if I get the sense that there is manipulation in, of course, in the procedural aspect of my case, I just need to start speaking out and trying to get a representation. As you know, I'm doing a 30-day protest in support of the Black American and Jewish community to combat anti-Black racism in Northern Ireland and anti-Semitism in Northern Ireland, which is huge. And I'm doing a 30-day protest online regarding that. And so every time that there is an injustice, that is going to make me speak out louder about what I'm witnessing here in this jurisdiction. And so we'll get into that at a later date. Now, this 30-day protest doesn't mean that I'm protesting every day online, or that I am, that it's going to be structured in any specific way. This 30-day protest really is my personal acknowledgement that there is anti-Black racism in the institutions in Northern Ireland and anti-Semitism in the institutions in Northern Ireland. And my protesting that within myself in the best way that I can do it respectfully and peacefully online, to bring awareness to that. And that is something that you have to be able to do constructively and respectfully and peacefully, so that it does not, so the authorities don't take it out of context. And that's something that I'm, working on now, because I know that often happens, that authorities do take this out of context. And so, as you know, I've been pretty silent on speaking out, because I want to make sure that my message does not get diluted and framed in a way that is an opposite to the core message and what I intend to promote. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.